Did you know that marine life millions of years ago was bigger and more dangerous than what we see today? Here are 10 of the scariest ancient sea monsters that ever existed. Number 10. Liopleurodon. Just imagine what it's like to swim alongside a creature that's many times your size. Pretty intimidating, but still nothing like these guys. The Liopleurodon was one of the largest sea monsters that ever lived. At about 80 feet long, it was the alpha predator in the shallow waters during the late Jurassic period, where it hunted crocodiles and giant fish. It was very well suited to this task with its long jaws and needle-sharp teeth, and its nose was incredibly sensitive, allowing it to detect prey across large distances. They did, however, need to breathe air, so their range was somewhat limited and they weren't able to go too far deep into the water. They had flippers to propel them through the water, which meant they weren't as fast and agile as other creatures at the time, but they more than made up for this with their ferocious bite. Number 9. Kerygmachela Kierkegaardi. The K Kierkegaardi is a strange creature that lived about 540 million years ago, and recent discoveries of their fossils have led to a completely new understanding of how animals' brains have developed. Growing up to 10 inches long, I know that's not very much compared to the 80-foot Liopleurodon I just mentioned, but they still have their merit, I promise. They were oval-shaped with skinny tails, 11 swimming flaps along each side, and 2 unusual appendages that protruded from their heads that they used to grab their prey. They are distant relatives to arthropods of today, such as spiders, lobsters, and butterflies. Unlike these, though, which have 3 segments to their brains, K Kierkegaardi only had 1 segment to its brain, which is a much more primitive structure. It had long been thought that arthropod ancestors would also have 3 parts to their brains, but these fossilized discoveries have shown that this is not the case. So now scientists are wondering when their evolution to a more complex structure actually happened. And now for number 8. But first, do you know what is thought to be the largest fish that ever lived? Let us know in the comments below. The answer is coming up. And be sure to subscribe if you are new here so you don't miss out on the latest videos. Number 8. The Dakosaurus. Dakosaurus lived during the Jurassic and Cretaceous eras about 145 million years ago. The species is often referred to as Godzilla because of the deep shape of its skull, but it was more like a large crocodile that lived in the saltwater of the oceans. Growing up to 16 feet long, it had paddle-shaped flippers to help propel itself through the water, as well as a fluke at the end of its tail to provide extra power. Its large skull and jaw, along with serrated teeth, suggest it had a different diet to other crocodile species. Rather than eating primarily fish, Dakosaurus fed on larger prey and possibly even other marine reptiles. They lived in all the world's oceans, with fossils having been found in what is now Europe, North America, South America, and Russia. Little is known about quite how they lived and whether they gave live birth in the depths or lay their eggs in the shallows. But one thing's for sure though, the Dakosaurus was a type of crocodile unlike anything we see today. Number 7. The Ichthyosaur. Ichthyosaurs lived during the Triassic period until around 90 million years ago, when they mysteriously became extinct, about 25 million years before the event that wiped out the dinosaurs. Meaning fish lizards, ichthyosaurs are actually thought to have evolved from a land reptile that moved back into the water, but it's not yet clear what its precise ancestry was. It's a little confusing since as they were in the oceans for more than 160 million years, there were a number of different species of ichthyosaur. They were at the top of the food chain in the regions for most of this time, but were eventually replaced by another reptilian creature called the plesiosaur. Because of their streamlined bodies, ichthyosaurs are thought to have had a top speed of 22 miles per hour through the water. Resembling fish, some species could grow to up to 50 feet long. They had pointed heads and teeth designed to catch prey ranging from the smallest fish to larger, more difficult prey. Number 6. The Tully Monster. If you were asked to design the strangest animal you could, then I bet you wouldn't come up with something as weird as this odd-looking creature called the Tully Monster. Fossil findings suggest that it lived in the shallow waters of the eastern United States about 300 million years ago, with remains having been found in the Mason Creek fossil beds in Illinois. Lots of them have been unearthed, so they were clearly abundant, but they were a very unusual combination of body parts, which has made it difficult to classify what the creature is. With eyes on long stalks, a pincer at the end of a long arm-like structure, and a body more resembling a mollusk, various teams have come to different conclusions about what it was. Some think it was a mollusk, others think the signs of gill pouches meant they were fish, and some even think they were vertebrates because of their complex eyes. Whatever the true classification is, Tully monsters, named after the fossil collector who first found them, is one of the strangest looking monsters that's ever lived in the oceans, and sure to be the subject of debate for many years to come. Number 5. The Kronosaurus. The Kronosaurus was a short-necked pliosaur that lived during the Cretaceous era, just over 100 million years ago. They grew to around 32 feet long, 9 feet of which was its huge head, big enough that it could fit an entire human inside of it. Remains have been found in Australia and Colombia, where it would have been the alpha predator of its time. It had conical teeth, which were almost a foot long each. Interestingly, unlike other pliosaurs, the teeth were not serrated. This means their prey was likely made up of medium-sized fish or small fish, and if they were to tackle something larger, they would have needed to rely on the twisting and turning of their huge bodies to tear the flesh apart, just like how crocodiles do today. The Kronosaurus was the second biggest pliosaur to have ever lived, much bigger than the Liopleurodon, which is often cited as the largest of the species. They were more than 3 times the size of a typical human and would easily be the most dominant predator in the oceans if it were still around today. Number 4. Anomalocaridids. If you're squeamish about creepy crawlies, then this next ancient sea monster is probably going to be your least favorite of all. Anomalocaridids were shrimp-like creatures that for millions of years were the largest predators in the oceans. They had soft-jointed bodies and spiny limbs to allow them to catch small prey like worms. First appearing about 542 million years ago, Anomalocaridids developed at the beginning of the era known as the Cambrian explosion, which is when most of the animal groups we know today first evolved. Good times, the Cambrian explosion, good times. They grew to up to 3 feet in length and spent their lives scouring the muddy seafloor at depths of up to 330 feet. At this time, the seabed would have been covered in various species of sea stars, sponges, and mollusks, and would be an ideal feeding ground. With hundreds of blade-like structures across their backs, Anomalocaridids would have easily swum about picking off their prey without fear of getting eaten by anything else. Number 3. The Tylosaurus. The Tylosaurus, a name which means knob lizard, was one of the largest mosasaurs to ever live. They swam in the oceans during the Cretaceous era about 70 million years ago and grew up to 50 feet long. They were different to earlier species of mosasaur that propelled themselves through the water with flippers and instead had giant tails that would do all of the work. Their tails had more than 80 vertebrae that allowed them to withstand the pressures involved in moving through the water, and it created a visible V-shape pushing through the skin. Tylosaurs would have swum in the waters known as the Western Interior Seaway that covered the US and Canada and were the ocean equivalent of the T-Rex at the time. Their large teeth and powerful jaws made light work of anything they decided to chase after, and some remains have even been found after having eaten land dinosaurs, suggesting that they would lurk near the shallows and take advantage of any creature that ventured too far from the shore. Despite their ability to attack with their teeth, most evidence points toward Tylosaurs using their snouts as a battering ram and preferring to hit into prey at high speeds and knock them unconscious before feeding. Great strategy, right? This method also means they most likely stalked their prey from below. They would take time to line themselves up and then strike before the victim knew what was happening and had time to swim away. Number 2. Luskhan Itilensis. The Luskhan Itilensis is a new species of pliosaur that was only recently identified in 2017 from fossils found 15 years earlier in the Volga River in Russia. Rather than being considered dinosaurs, they were actually distant relatives of turtles, with 4 large flippers, big heads, powerful jaws, and very sharp teeth. They lived in the ocean above what is now Europe around 130 million years ago, and their skulls alone were up to 5 feet long. The shape of the Luskhan Itilensis head was what made it unique amongst other similar species, particularly in the way it resembled that of some types of river dolphin, which would have allowed it to effectively hunt fish. Pretty cool, right? Half dolphin, half turtle. Number 1. Leedsichthys. Growing up to 55 feet long, the Leedsichthys is thought to be the largest fish that has ever lived. It's difficult to know much about it though because only fragments of this giant creature have ever been found. At one point it was believed to be twice the size, but even the recent reduction in estimates based on new finds makes it bigger than today's whale sharks, and by far the biggest bony fish that's ever been discovered. They lived in the oceans around 165 million years ago, and like whale sharks, would have survived on a diet of plankton. It's been a mystery how the Leedsichthys came to grow so large, but the abundance of food in the oceans at the time could be the cause. Its size would have been invaluable at the time because sharing the waters with other aquatic monsters like pliosaurs meant that if you were bigger than the predators, you'd stand a reasonable chance of evading them because they would instead go for easier prey. It's one of those cases where bigger was most definitely better. Thanks for watching! Which one was your favorite? Let us know in the comments and be sure to subscribe. See you next time. Bye!